Okay, so on a related note, we want to read data for one particular user. So recall that to do that, what we want is we want to put in someone's name like Philip and hit get profile, which triggers this read button. And then once that happens, it will generate a URL such as user/Philip in this case. It will generate something like user/Philip. And then it will do a GET request. And if the AJAX call is successful, it will run this code to populate the web page with the data corresponding to Philip. Okay, so what do? So the first thing we do is let's just check if this code works. Make an AJAX request too. So one easy hack, if you don't want to comment out stuff, is just to put a return. So anything after the return statement won't run. So I just want to double check what happens when I hit the read button, which is the get profile button. So if I say get profile, inspect, this is called read button. It was kind of renamed, but it was renamed a long time ago. It's called read button. Okay, so I'm going to reload. Reload again, just to make sure. Okay, I'm going to say Philip, or say John, get profile, and it says make an AJAX request to user/John. Okay, this is exactly the URL that we need because we want to go into user/John and then grab stuff out from user/John. Okay, so what do? We're gonna depend on a friend, again, database.ref. And now we're gonna do database.ref of request URL. Actually, let me call this key just for simplicity, because it's not really a URL. So we're gonna find the reference to user/whatever we put in. Then we're gonna do a once value, which just like before, the way to read this is to read a value once from this part of the database, right? So database, get some reference to a part of it and read a value once. And the callback function will take one parameter called snapshot and then complete. And once again, we want const data equals snapshot.val to get the data out. And let's just console log data just as a check to make sure something's happening. Okay, so if all goes well, the data is going to be console logged to the console. So reload. And let's look for Carol now. When I hit get profile, notice how the data for Carol has been returned. Job engineer pet bear. Perfect. And John. Perfect. Student dog and Philip. Professor cat. And let's say we put someone who's not in the database, Bobby. What actually happens? Does it throw an error? Does it give you an exception? No, it doesn't really give you an error. It just gives you null for data, which is good to know because we want to start handling errors. So first of all, if we say if not data, which means if data is null, what do we want to do? I'm just going to actually copy in the error code down here. So I'm just going to literally copy in the error code. So recall this was the code that would run if there were errors in the original AJAX. I'm actually just going to copy this error handling code right here, verbatim. So recall what this does is that this clears the display, clears the pet image, and sets status to error could not find user at URL. Let's do this key. I'll just say you could not find user. Yeah, could not find user key. Okay. We can move this to the bottom just in order. It doesn't really matter because these will all be set at the same time. But basically emptying the job div, emptying the pet image, and setting a status. Okay, let's test it with an error now and see what happens. Reload. Error is Bobby, right? So if we put in Bobby, let's see what happens. Get profile. And it says could not find user/Bobby. Good. So now that we checked if not error, then everything down here, if data is null or false, down here that means the data must be something good or something legit. So, just as another check, we can say if data.job and data.pet, which means that we want to check that we have both a job and a pet. And else, we have some error as well. So else, let's just, I don't know, we'll just clear the display again. This is another error case. This is just in case the data is incomplete. We want to clear it because we don't want to display something incomplete. So if we have a job and we have a pet, then we actually will display it. So I'm going to actually, again, copy the code down here or up here. So I'm going to literally copy this code and plop it down here on indent. So this says that we're going to first set the status thing to successfully fetch data at URL. Let's just remove this. It's extraneous. The first thing is we're going to set the job div to my job is data.job. And then the pet image, we're going to set the image to data.pet and set the width to 300. Recall that data came from here. The callback function that Firebase will call takes a parameter called snapshot. You're going to call .val on the snapshot to get the data out, and then you can operate off the data. So the thing to notice about the body of this whole function is that it's pretty much identical to the Ajax handler here. I mean, it's a little different in details, but I pretty much copied and pasted as much code as possible to show that we're doing the same thing on the front end, but now with Firebase as a back end instead of SQLite. Okay, let's try it. So reload, and we're going to clear this. So let's get profile for Carol. And there we go. My job is engineer and bear. And then John, we can see the student dog. Perfect. Philip, Professor cat. Perfect. And then Bobby, who's not in the database, get profile. This is cleared out. Oh, did we? I think there's another error. Cannot repop for your job. All right. Whoops. Yeah, I think there's an error. But anyways, this should be good. So if it turns out that I want to put Bobby in the database so I can recognize him, I can put Bobby, job is mechanic, and pet is bear.jpg. When I hit insert, look what happens to the right side of the database. A new Bobby, mechanic, bear gets added. And now if I look at Bobby, I should get my job as mechanic on the bear. On the bear. My pet is a bear because of this right here. If we remove Bobby from the database, look what happens to the right side. Bobby is no longer there. So when we try to look at Bobby again, it will give an error. It will clear off the screen and give an error. And then to reset everybody, let's just reset the database again. So in this way, we have now a way of getting the value out of the database as well. So just to recap, we have created the database initially and reset it by removing the user's collection and then adding Philip, John, and Carol in. We have had the ability to now get the profile of one individual person from the database. Actually, let's delete all this jQuery code below because we don't need it. This is the old code for V2. Okay, make sure my parentheses are right. So we can load one person's data with read button handler. And then we can get data about all users from the all users button from this one. It's for all users. Oh, so let's say I remove John, delete. And then when I click all users again, notice how it's Carol and Philip because John has been deleted from the database. Nothing hiding here, just Carol and Philip here. Okay, so the all users button received data about all users, the insert button inserted new data or updated data, and the delete button deleted data. So that in a nutshell is the basics of Firebase. The cool thing is that you can access this all from your front end code if you don't necessarily care about having the most security. If you care about having secure access and permissions and authentication, you should put the Firebase code in your backend so that you can keep your API keys and all these secrets basically in the backend. So notice how these things are supposed to be secret, but if you put it in your front end code like I've done now, then anybody who visits your site can say view source and actually look at all these API keys and just use them and use up your account and quota and such. So just be careful with that, but it's okay for prototyping.